just wanted to start by saying thank you for taking this time tonight, and of course for being here with the Choose Love movement and everything. It's just so fabulous, and it's so wonderful that people are taking time. And Zoom has become our new normal. It certainly has. We're connecting all over the country, all over the world right now, and it's so fantastic. So I'm Amy Schmidt. I actually am living in Connecticut, not too far from Scarlett right now, probably about 30 miles, 20 miles, something like that. And I'm the host of a podcast called Fearlessly Facing 50. I'm an author and a TEDx speaker, and I'm just so honored and humbled to be here tonight at this event that's all about the power of gratitude. I'll just start by just kind of laying a few little housekeeping things, because I'm sure everybody is familiar with Zoom, but at times it gets a little crazy. I believe that someone will be muting everybody, but you are able to unmute yourself when you want to comment. When we open it up for questions and sharing stories and experiences, you're able to unmute yourself. Also, if you're not as familiar with Zoom, just to run across the bottom of the screen, there's a few things there. Of course, your microphone on the far left, and if you click on that, you can mute yourself or unmute. And then, of course, you can turn your video on and off, but it's wonderful to see everybody's face. It really is. And then right next to the participants, there's a little box there that talks about chat. So in that box, you can go ahead, and I see that everybody's pretty accustomed to it already. You can go ahead and just say hello and where you're from, which is so fantastic. So we're going to get started, and I'd just like to take a minute to introduce 4 women tonight that will be here. Of course, you all know Scarlett, and I just have to say my heart is filled with gratitude tonight to be a part of this. I recently had the amazing Scarlett Lewis on my podcast. She shared her story, her journey, really how the Choose Love Foundation started. And, from that, I still get goosebumps when I talk about it, because it was impactful, it was insightful, it was courageous, and it was all of those things. And what Scarlett exudes every day is so many treasures that she can share with others. And that's what I'm so excited for you all to hear tonight. And I'm sure many of you know Scarlett and her journey, but it's just an amazing story, and she has a treasure that I'm very grateful for in my life. I also have tonight Lisa Spears. Lisa is just another gem in my life, and when I talk about gratitude, I feel so grateful that I'm surrounded by these 3 women tonight. They encourage me, they lift me up, and that's what's most important, I feel, at this time in our life. Lisa is the founder of a blog called I Do Part 2, and she'll talk a bit about that. And it's really about the power of staying connected. And of course, she started that about 1.5 years ago when we first met. I also have tonight, we have with us Angie Johnsey. Angie is another gem in my life. It's just funny how, and I'm sure Scarlett will talk about this, how people come into your life at different seasons and for different reasons. And I'm just so grateful for that. Angie has the Tidy Mind. You may have seen her on NBC. She works with, Valerie Bertinelli, she works with quite regularly. And she really talks about the power of the mind and tidying the mind and how we go about doing that. So there's just so much value in all of the women here tonight, and as presenters, as well as everybody that is gathered here. We thank you so much for taking time. With that, I just want to go ahead and read 2 quotes that were sent to me that I thought were kind of interesting to open up the discussion tonight about gratitude and incorporating gratitude into our lives. And like Scarlett will say, have it in your toolbox. I had one quote sent to me from somebody from the Fearlessly Facing 50 community. I think she's online tonight. I don't know her personally, but she said, gratitude is the best attitude. And I thought that that's very powerful. And I just really loved that. Gratitude is the best attitude. And I think sometimes we forget about that. The other one I got in was from a woman in Alaska, in Anchorage. And she sent this in, and she said, the struggle ends when gratitude begins. That's another goosebump for me. I know this is going to be one of those nights where there's a lot of goosebumps, but I'll tell you, I just think those 2, and I'm very grateful for the women that sent in their thoughts about gratitude and how powerful it is. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scarlett to talk a little bit about Choose Love Foundation, just a little bit about the movement, about this month, and it's Choose Love Month. And I have my love shirt on tonight, Scarlett. So
I love that. Yay!
I had earrings in, but they were getting a little heavy. So with that, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Scarlett.
Thank you so much, Amy. Well, you alluded to the tools in our toolbox. And I like to say that we're all born with a tool belt around our waist. We can't really see it, but it's there. And we start putting in tools from the very beginning. Like we might cry when we're hungry or we need our diapers changed. But then we grow up and crying doesn't really work anymore. And so we might take that tool out of our tool belt and put something else in. And the skills and tools that are called essential life skills, the ones that I have dedicated my life to spreading, are those that we use every single day in every aspect of our lives. It's how to have healthy relationships. It's how to manage our emotions. It's how to grow through difficulty, how to make responsible decisions. It's called social and emotional intelligence. And these are the skills and tools that we have to learn. We're not born with them. But once they're in our toolbox, we can use them to make every aspect of our life better. And that's why they're called essential life skills. Now, for those of you who don't know me, in 2012, my 6-year-old son was murdered at Sandy Hook Elementary School in his first grade classroom. It was the worst mass murder in a school in U.S. history. And I came home several days later, and I found a message that Jesse had written on our kitchen chalkboard shortly before he died. He had written 3 words: nurturing, healing, love. And I was floored, of course, because those words aren't in the vernacular of a 6-year-old. They're not something a 6-year-old would normally say. They were phonetically spelled because he was in first grade and just learning how to write. But I knew instantly that if the young man who had perpetrated the crime, he had been a former student of Sandy Hook Elementary School, his mother had taught at the school, if he had been able to give and receive, nurturing, healing, love, the tragedy would never have happened. It was so simple. But of course, simple isn't always easy. And so I started researching how to get that message into schools that then, of course, translates into homes, because the issues that we experience in schools don't stop when we graduate. So that would translate into homes and into our communities. And I found out about social and emotional learning and character development. And so I quit my job and I have dedicated my life to making sure that every child, and really so kids and us big kids, have access to what we know and what decades of research has proven to be absolutely necessary to face difficulty in our lives and then to grow through it. So this is the Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement. We're now in over 10,000 schools. We're being taught in every state in 112 countries and growing. And we have this formula that's behind me that is what all of our work is based on. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but gratitude is a big part of it. It's so vitally important. I had a dear friend of mine call me the other day, and she was having a hard time, and she was asking me for advice. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, okay, like I've done so much research. I have programming in so many schools, homes, and communities, in prisons, in governmental agencies, police departments all over the world. And I'm thinking, I gotta think of something brilliant, right? Because I've done so much research. Do you know what I landed on? A gratitude practice. Because gratitude, there's just so much research behind it. It strengthens our immune system. It helps us sleep better. It elongates our life. I mean, it goes on. And it's just so vitally important. So even in my experience, I will tell you, having lost Jesse in such a violent way, I was able to shift my focus and to start healing, I believe, a lot quicker and I believe a lot more thoroughly, because I was able to focus on what I had instead of what I had lost. And that's the beauty of what gratitude does for us. So thank you. I'm gonna give the mic, pass the mic over to Lisa's over here. So it's kind of like I'm handing it to you to introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Scarlett and Amy and Angie and all you ladies for being here. What I'm going to talk about just really quickly and sharing a story doesn't really have anything to do with my blog first part, in particular, but it's all about creating deeper connections. And when I look at the Choose Love movement, I realized how fortunate I was for an experience I had with my son growing up. And I do part 2, as Amy said, is all about creating deeper connections in midlife and beyond. But what I want to talk about is a quick story that really illustrates the essence of compassion in action, which is one of the foundations of Choose Love. And I thought it was a really nice fit for today. So when my son was 24, so this is a while ago, but I think this will give you a really good illustration of what a positive outcome could look like. He was in first grade, coincidentally, and his classmates knew he was a little different. So if any of you have children on the spectrum or special needs and you're open to sharing in the chat, maybe make a note so I know. But he'd been recently diagnosed with autism, and the kids didn't really know how to deal with him. They weren't sure how to react. And everything that he was not mistreated, everything that they were concerned about was very reasonable for their age. And this wonderful special ed teacher, and I'll shout her out just in case she's out there in the Zoom universe somewhere, Valda Fields, suggested this popcorn analogy. And I wasn't quite sure what to think about it, but I trusted her. So John stayed home, my son John stayed home from school one day, and when all the kids came in, she put a napkin in front of all of them with a pile of popcorn and said, don't start eating yet, but I want you to really look at the popcorn kernels and try to figure out what's different about them and what's the same about them. And so, of course, then she asked them, and all these little hands went up, and they came up with all these really creative, ideas for how the popcorn kernels were the same and how they were different. And then she said, your classmate John isn't here today, but can you think about ways that that you are the same as John? And so, of course, the kids started with, we both have brown hair and we have brown eyes. Then a few students started mentioning other attributes that John had, like how smart he was, and that he was kind, and that he had a good sense of humor. And one boy, I remember, in the back of the room raised his hand and he said, he has a soul just like me. And so as the mom in the class, I was just losing it. But then the teacher asked the kids how he was different, and they were a little more hesitant to raise their hands. But when they did, they said, well, he has a hard time staying still in line, and he has a hard time, sometimes he gets lost in the hallways, and he has a hard time drawing in the lines. And then this wonderful teacher asked the question that goes to the heart of compassion in action at Choose Love. She said, how might we as a class help John? And 20 little hands went up. And from that point on, those kids were not only John's helper, but they were also his protector. And I know that it meant a lot to them too, because I run into them years later and they're still asking me, how's John? How's John doing? What's he up to? And I really feel that, looking at the Choose Love Foundation and how grateful I am for that experience John had, that because they chose love, that John is a happy, well-adjusted member of society. He has a wonderful sense of self. And from our family's perspective, we're forever blessed. So that's my sharing of gratitude and how it connects to the Choose Love movement. So thank you.
Mm. And that's such a powerful story. And I already see there's several mentions here in the chat. Lisa, you'll have to look through that when you have a minute. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I think sometimes it's a challenge, isn't it, to look at our life and look at the things. And Scarlett and I talked about this recently, and Lisa, when we were on a call about where we are right now with the pandemic and with the frustration level of not being able to see family, or, you know, not being able to carry out business as usual. And then we have to look for those silver linings, those moments to be grateful for what we do have.
Yeah.
As a parent with older kids, you know, I've had the opportunity to have them around, which usually they're not at home, you know, and as so many of those times when we get frustrated, we forget about that love and compassion, and that's the big formula. I mean, it truly is. Angie, I would like to bring you on and introduce you and have you kind of share. I would love, from your perspective, if you could just share a little bit about, you know, what you're seeing now, especially with clients that you see, and things when gratefulness just, it's on the back burner, they just can't quite get there. What would be your advice? And just a little bit about yourself and your journey would be great before you start.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Can you hear me? Am I on there? I'm Angie Johnsey, and I am a mind coach, life coach, whatever you want to call me. But I work with clients, helping them understand their mind and helping them understand their emotions. And like Scarlett's talking about, the importance of having those tools, like having those tools that when you're in those lower places in life, that you have those, you already know them, you've already been exploring them, and you can just pull them out and say, okay, I remember, like it's kind of like a rope. Okay, I can use this to help get me out. So that's a little bit about me. And Scarlett, what you're doing is amazing. I mean, it could have gone either way. Like, you chose love, and I think your son's words, I think it was to connect to you, to say, this is what we're going to do together. We are going to nurture healing love. We're going to show the world what it looks like when someone is in, I mean, for every mother sitting out here, like, I mean, it's inconceivable. It's an inconceivable loss, you know. It's like, you can't imagine the pain of that, and none of us really want to. So to see you, who has been through that, to be able to choose love is such a beautiful example that we can all step up and choose love. And then, you know, it's Lisa, your story is amazing too. It's like, there's so much, we judge things that are different, and instead of embracing those things and honoring those things and celebrating those things. So I think that's a beautiful share that you had. I was thinking about this whole gratitude thing, and I work with people who their mind and the stories that their mind has focused on and is telling them, and the things that they're witnessing in the world, has them in such a low place that if you tell them, you know, they'll read things about gratitude, they can't reach gratitude at that point. Do you know what I mean? They're like, they try, and they're like, I don't think it's going to work for me. But I wanted to share just a little bit of kind of a visual, if that's okay, Amy and everybody, Scarlett and Lisa, of what gratitude actually does, and how it actually pulls you up and out of that place that you're in that low place, when you're looking around and you're like, what am I supposed to be great? Do you see my life right now? Can you see what I'm going through? Do you understand what is happening? What am I supposed to be grateful for? And they'll try it. They'll be like, okay, well, I have food. I have food in the house. I'm grateful for that. I have a house. I have a bed to sleep in. I mean, there's a lot of people in the world who don't have that. So they're like, They're like grasping, but really what that creates in them is almost like it makes you even feel worse. It's like, that's it. Like that, for the mind is like, that's it. That's all I've got to be grateful for. So it doesn't like build the energy that is going to pull you up and out of the low place that you're in. It just kind of makes you feel stuck there. So you decide, your mind decides, well, gratitude, it didn't work. It didn't work. I'm not going to get out of this hole, like, because that energy, it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to pull you out. So I want to give you something, if you're there, or if you know somebody's there, that you can share this with them, because gratitude really is very powerful. But if you're in a low place, you need something more. I like to see it like you're down in this hole and you've got this hot air balloon, okay? And your gratitude is like an offering to life. Like you're always offering something to life. You're offering an energy to life, and life is always responding to whatever you're putting out there into it. So you are down in this deep, dark place, and you need to get a good offering. I mean, you need to make it good, okay? And when you look around at your life, you're like, I've got nothing to fuel this hot air balloon that is going to help lift me up and out of this place, lift me up to a higher place, so that I can actually, my mind can see a new perspective. So my mind can actually see the things and actually mean it when it says, oh my God, life is beautiful. Oh, wait a minute. I couldn't see that before. Life is really amazing. And then you start offering something different to life, and then life starts responding to that offering, and then things start to get better and better and better. So here's my practice. Am I okay on time? Like, I don't know how much time I have. Good. Okay. Here's what I do. This is my gratitude practice. And it works. I'm telling you, like, it really changes and turns things around pretty quick. So you take a notebook, a piece of paper, or whatever. A lot of people like to type things down, but I don't know, there's something to it when you're actually holding a pen and you're actually, that energy's coming out of you onto that paper through your hand. So take a piece of paper, and I want you to build excitement. And if you can't use, that's very important key, you have to build an energy of excitement to the point that it makes you smile. Okay. Like when you've got a smile on your face after you've written it down, you're there. Okay. So you take this piece of paper and you just start writing. You write an imaginary story. This is the power of the imagination. That's what you have one for. So when you're in these deep, deep, dark places and reality doesn't look so great, you can use your imagination. Okay. So start writing down, like you're writing a story to a friend, an amazing story of how everything turned around. Oh, girlfriend, you are not going to believe this. Let me tell you what has happened. And then you just start writing like, oh, and then, I had no car. And then suddenly this thing, just make it up. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not attached to, what you're saying. You're building an energy inside of you of excitement. So you're writing it down, have fun with it. Like make it what you want it, make it fun, make it exciting. Don't let your mind get in the way and say, that's never going to happen. You're never going to have this or that. Are you kidding? That's not the point. The point is that you're feeding that hot air balloon that you need to feed really bad to come get out of this hole, so that you can see what is around you. Because your mind, when it starts to focus on those negative things, all you can see is the negative. That's just kind of like you're down below the trees and all you can see is that. But when you start focusing, even if it isn't real yet, even if it isn't real, you start to look up. You start to look up at possibilities. You start to look at what you would like to experience. You focus on what you want to have, what would be fun, what would be enjoyable, what would be amazing, what would bring you so much relief, what would bring you so much joy. And you write those things down. Something will happen inside of you. A shift will happen, and you'll feel yourself. You'll be like, Just thinking of that, that just feels so good. When you get to that point, you have just sent out an offering to life, and life will respond to you. Life will echo that back to you, maybe not immediately, but if you can do this at least 10 minutes a day for ever how long it takes, I don't care how long it takes, you want out of this hole, right? Like, let's commit for a second. Write it down, put out the energy, and then see what happens. You're going to have an immediate effect of a mood change, which alters the chemicals in your body, which is that's going to create a momentum also. It's going to make you feel better, make you feel like you're less defeated, less of a victim, less like you actually are doing something to help yourself instead of just sitting there in the misery of it. So that's it. That's my gratitude practice. And I wish you luck with it. And I'd love to know how it goes. And thank you, girls. Like, I'm very honored that you would have me here with all of you. Thank you. That's it. I'm done.
Angie, we love that you're here. Thank you so much. And I love that practice. We use gratitude. We call it the great mind shifter. So the interesting thing about our thoughts is that, every single one of us have thousands and thousands of thoughts, tens of thousands of thoughts every single day, the majority of which are negative and repetitive because we have a natural negative bias. So that's on your best day. And so just to be aware of that can change your life, because then you're going to feel yourself having this negativity. Cavemen focused on a saber-toothed tiger. We focus on negativity, and we have this negative bias to keep us safe. This is a safety mechanism. So it's not a bad thing, but we've kind of let it run rampant a little bit. And so we just need to be aware of it. And then we can use gratitude to shift our focus, because you can only focus on one thought at a time. It's crazy. Try it later. I've tried it. You can't focus on two thoughts at once. So in other words, when you have a negative, lower energy, depressed thought, and it's repeating, and you're kind of going down that rabbit hole that Angie was talking about, try thinking of something that you're grateful for, and it literally shifts the focus of your lens towards more positivity. Now, of course, you have to follow that up. And I use gratitude. I literally tick off gratitudes all day long. And this is a practice for me because it keeps me on the straight and narrow, productive and feeling good. And of course, there's always something to be grateful for, even in your darkest moment, as Angie was alluding to. Even when Jesse was, I learned about all of that, I was still practicing gratitude for what I had, for the beauty around me, for the love that was pouring in from all over the world, for the time that I had. I mean, there's just, the list is endless. And you can, it literally changes the wiring in your brain. Every single thought that we have leads us towards languishing or flourishing. We know each thought impacts every single cell in our body, our thoughts. And here's the beautiful thing. We have control over our thoughts. So try this also next time. Think of a grateful thought, kind of like Angie was saying, and that shifts the focus. You start to rewire your brain towards positivity. And you can literally make those grateful, positive thoughts come quicker and quicker. And it can be an immediate go-to after a while.
I love that. That's so true. And there's an analogy out there that kindness, sprinkle it like confetti. And I think that gratitude is the same way. And it has that effect when you have a grateful heart, and when you are practicing gratitude in your life, it does spread to other people, within your family, within your friends. They can all see that. It would be wonderful. Thank you for sharing the hot air balloon. We had a couple of comments here that say that, the visual is so helpful a lot of times for people to visualize that. So thank you for sharing that. If anybody has a gratitude practice that they would like to share, it would be wonderful to hear. And if we want to, I think you can unmic yourself. If we go, otherwise, what we could do is just, we could put it in the chat there, and I can call out your name, and then you can unmic yourself if there's many people that want to contribute. But it would be wonderful to hear how you are incorporating gratitude and the practice of being grateful into your life. And Scarlett, there is a question here until some people have wanted to share. Can you share the tool belt practices?
Yes, well, absolutely. So that will require me sharing the formula. So here's the formula for choosing love. This is a formula for thoughtfully responding with love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction that arises in your life. You will be able to take your personal power back and thoughtfully respond with love, which is kindness, caring, civility, compassion. That's the strongest response, of course. And so it starts, it's behind me, but it starts with courage. Courage is the most important character value because it's the one that underlies all the rest. We need courage every single day. A lot of times when we talk about courage, we think about extraordinary acts of courage. Jesse's known for his extraordinary act of courage. He actually stood up to the shooter and saved 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own at 6 years old. That was a huge inspiration for me as well, because I knew that if my 6-year-old son could do something like that, I certainly could spend the rest of my life being part of the solution. But when I talk about courage, I'm not necessarily talking about those huge acts. I'm talking about the everyday acts of courage for us. And that's like sometimes getting out of bed and putting our best foot forward when we just don't feel good. It's being grateful when things aren't going our way. It's facing our fears and even discomfort rather than resisting and avoiding it or even numbing ourselves. It's being kind when someone's not being kind to you. It's doing the right thing. It's telling the truth. All of these things you're probably thinking, wait a minute, this isn't just for kids. No, it's not just for kids. It's for big kids too. It's for all of us. It's a human thing to choose love. So courage is one skill and tool, and there are actually things that you can do. And science tells us this to strengthen our courage. Wow. Like breathing, we have a brave breath, like brave poses, which is an expansive pose, which really helps our executive function. These are just a few of the things that you can do to enhance your courage. And then this actually comes from Jesse's message of nurturing, healing, love, by the way. Nurturing means loving kindness and gratitude. So another skill and tool in the belt is literally gratitude. Gratitude as the great mind shifter, using it to shift from lower energy to higher energy, which is grateful energy. The have to versus the get tos. Like, did you say, I'm sure tonight you didn't say, oh my God, I have to listen to these women talking about gratitude. But you might say, you might find yourself doing have tos, like I have to go to the grocery store. You know, I tell a little story about me being in the grocery store here in Sandy Hook and people coming up to me saying, oh my God, I have to take multiple kids to multiple sporting events. And then I have to go home and do a big, huge pile of laundry for multiple kids. Have to. You know how I translate that? Wow, you get to take multiple kids to multiple sporting events. You get to go home and do a big thing of laundry, like the get tos versus the have tos. Your have to is always somebody's get to. There's so many different ways that we can practice gratitude, even positive affirmations. I have positive affirmations written all over my house. I have them on my mirror. I have them on my shower door. I have them on the refrigerator. And these are all this was at the boys' height. They're just general, like I am enough. I love myself. I have all the skills and tools I need to solve problems. We have that negative bias that I was talking about, that focus on the negativity with our thoughts. That's that little voice that talks to you all day long. Do you have that? You know, when you're kids, you go, oh, I hate myself. Nobody likes me. I'm so stupid. But when we grow up, that little voice goes inside. We don't necessarily share that, but that's how we talk to ourselves. And that's simply our negative bias trying to keep us safe. So we can turn those statements around so that we can start the rewiring process of our brain. Our brains are plastic. There's something called neuroplasticity. We can change the way that we are. So if you're sitting there going, oh, I'm over 50, I am who I am, right? I'm over 50, by the way. No, that's not true. That's not true. We can start every day, a new day, and we can rewire our brains towards positivity and happiness and health. I mean, in school, I wrote this in the chat box. In school, we focus on physical fitness and academic fitness. But really, what's even more important than that is mental and emotional fitness. And this is exactly what Angie is talking about and what she does. She literally gets us fit so that when we find ourselves in difficult situations, we have the skills and tools that we need to not just overcome them, but to grow through and be strengthened by them. Then, of course, forgiveness. I don't want to take up too much time here, but forgiveness is another skill and tool that's so important and that I talk a lot about. And forgiveness is so misunderstood. And it actually is the kids' favorite character value, which is crazy. But they know how good it feels and how it gives you, it feels like a superpower. It gives you your personal power back, and it cuts that cord that attaches you to pain. And then the last skill and tool is compassion in action, which is what Lisa was talking a lot about. Compassion is identifying a need or practicing empathy, and then the action component, which is actively doing something to help ease that need. And here's the crazy, wonderful thing about that. Science tells us all of the, I say, nurturing, healing love that we give out, we get back. And so here is this formula that literally is a direct path to flourishing. You can choose love, but you actually have to have a few skills and tools in your belt to have that be an option. I've literally been in prisons talking to guys, and they're like, we didn't know. All we ever knew was anger, hatred, and resentment. Like, we didn't even know love was a choice. Wow. Okay. We want to choose it. It's awesome. Thank you for that question.
That's incredible when you think about, when you didn't think you had that option. Angie, could you speak just a little bit about the tidy mind process? Because I think that really would be something people would be interested in hearing about, especially with gratitude, because I find it so interesting. When I had Angie on my show, she talked about, and I'm very visual, the mind being broken down into rooms. And I would love to hear kind of your analogy or your take on that, especially where gratitude and love and compassion would all fall in those rooms.
Yes, sure. So the tidy mind process is a visualization that helps you see what your mind is doing and where it is hanging out, so that you can understand its mental tendencies and its mental habits. And we all have a lot of similar mental habits and mental tendencies, but you need to know you. Like, you really need to learn how to care for your mind. You need to know your mind. You need to know what it's capable of. You need to know what its bad habits are. You need to know where it's running around creating messes. So I came up with this. I've worked with Maria Shriver as her mind coach for several years, and she's a very visual person as well, but she also likes organization. Like, her house is immaculate, and that's just her. So, and uncertainty really plays with, it does a number on her mind. So I wanted to give her clarity, and I wanted to have a way for her to look, to follow her mind, because she couldn't really keep up with what it was doing, and that was driving her crazy. It's like, I don't know why my mind keeps doing these things. So we came up with the map of a house and a floor plan so that we could organize into rooms. So basically, the way you use the tool is, if you're going through the day, and your emotions always are kind of like your little warning system. If you're bothered about something, you're not feeling good, it's kind of like, hello, alert, alert. Your mind is running around in your tidy mind house, making a mess somewhere, telling some scary stories, focusing on things that are not constructive, that are destructive. So you going through your day, your emotions go off, ringing the bells, and you're like, where's my mind? Where is it? What is it doing? So it brings in an awareness first. It helps you be aware of, hey, like something is going on here. And if I can locate it, then I can do something about it. Because a lot of us walk around so like just so entangled with the mind, not feeling like we have any power or any choice. As Scarlett was talking about, we have a choice. We don't feel like we have a choice because we're so embodied in the emotion of what's happening. It feels so real and so like we can't change it. We're just suffering it. But if you can create some awareness, what happens is you create some separation. And you're able to look at what your mind is doing, not as you are the mind and all these feelings that you're having, but you're the observer of this mind and what it's doing and the emotions it's creating. So if you're standing separated from it, you can say, oh, well, let me see what it's doing now. Now I'm becoming the caretaker of my mind instead of the victim of my mind. What's it doing now? So basically, I'll just give you a brief, sorry, I don't want to make this long, but I'm just going to give a brief, tell you what the rooms are, okay? So I've broke it down to 3 different levels. It's like the levels of a house. And then you've got the basement, which I call the past room. You've got the main level, which is your people room. And then you got the top level, which is your future room or your attic, okay? So if your mind is, and when we have some helper rooms off to the side of those, and I'll tell you briefly what that is, but you can look at your mind and say, where is it? Is it talking about someone? Is it having a crazy imaginary argument inside I've been arguing with somebody all day long in my head, trying to prove my point or do, whatever. So you're in the people room. And then if you're worried, thinking about something that happened in the past and your mind's like, bargaining over it, thinking if it thinks about it, that it can change it somehow, or it's just, it's spinning about this thing in the past. So you're in the basement. And then if you're worried about the future, oh my God, are they going to be okay? What's going to happen with the pandemic? Are we ever going to get to go out again? Or, like you're in the attic, you're in the future. So when you learn these rooms and you start to have that awareness to say, oh, let me get my map out. And there's a map. Let me get my map out and look, where's my mind now? What happens is you start to notice habits. You start to notice tendencies. Oh, it's in the people room. Again, it does that a lot. It likes to analyze and process and problem solve about people, and people aren't solvable. I'm sorry, I wish they were, but they're ever changing. You never know what they're going to do next because they have a mind of their own, right? So you start to see your habits and tendencies, and then you have the helper rooms, which off of the attic is your God room, off of the people room is your mission room, and off of the basement is your trash room. So you can learn more about that if you'd like to. On Instagram, I've got like a gazillion videos that teach you all about that. But yeah, those helper rooms, once you start to locate yourself and where your mind is going, you can say, okay, let's go do something a little more proactive. Let's go change our focus. Let's go shift our focus to something that will serve us in a much better way and will also keep our emotional self calm, because that's really that's the key of this tool, is that you want to find more peace and more stillness and more calm more often, instead of feeling so much pain, so much anxiety, so much depression, so many disturbed emotions. You want to keep those emotions nice and stable and calm, and by keeping a check on where your mind is going, that is the result of that. And using those helper rooms will help you have somewhere to send it, and you'll know what to do in each room so that it helps you keep your emotions in check.
Mm-hmm. Angie, there was one question there. What was the helper room off the attic? And somebody said the God room. Was that correct? Yes, thank you.
Yes,
and
the God room.
So we talk about you're talking about the rooms, and so and focusing. And so when we look at gratitude, do you look at gratitude? I would love to get Scarlett and Angie and Lisa's perspective. Would it be developing a habit? Do you feel that gratitude is kind of a habit that once you start doing it, that it becomes, you know, how they say the power of a habit, it takes 30 days to create a habit. Do you feel that that's something that would correlate with gratitude? Is that a habit that you start in your life?
Well, I can respond. I feel like we call it a practice. Really, it's a practice, because life is this beautiful thing that gives you an opportunity to practice your social and emotional intelligence, meaning your emotional management, your self-regulation, every day, all day long. So it is, I think that it's a practice. It could become a habit. I think that it becomes easier the more that you do it. It's the lens through which you look at the world. I love the quote, I think it was from Wayne Dyer: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So if you are looking out your window with gratitude, it's going to look a lot different than if you're looking out your window in victimhood, in blame, in anger, resentment, and bottom line, that's really just a choice. But you do have to have the awareness that that's a choice, and a little bit, as Angie said, of some skills and tools to be able to get you to that place.
Interesting. Lisa, around gratitude, with what you do with I Do Part 2, you know, it's really about deeper connections. I'm curious what you've seen. You know, you have people actually submitting stories and sharing their stories with you. They're really being vulnerable. Have you found any stories that really resonate around gratitude and what you find with what you've done with I Do Part 2?
Oh, absolutely. I think that especially as we get older, and I think I see a few faces over 30 on here, that your focus really becomes more present, you know, and then what Scarlett talked about with awareness. And I think there's nothing that wrapped the world into more awareness than the pandemic, and just being so grateful for what you have. But I think that a lot of the stories the women have shared have told other women and men. I have a few men that follow. They don't feel as alone. There's women, there's marriages that felt they only had certain problems, but when they read these stories, I'll get a direct message saying, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. And I think that resonates continually. And I also had an idea about courage. You know, Amy, you and I have both talked about courage, that where we were 2 years ago, my getting involved in different things outside of the kids' school and philanthropy was something I wanted to do for years, but was always afraid to do. And finally, you know, with the courage of kind of just jumping in with a bit of preparation, but jumping in, you know, has brought me to today. And I'm really looking at, this has opened one door, which is going to open another door, which is going to open another door. And I'm so grateful for that. It all comes back to grateful. So I honestly had not heard prior to getting to know Scarlett a while back, tying in courage to gratefulness. But, you know, if you have courage to go, a friend went snowshoeing by herself. You know, she was so grateful for this really peaceful time. And she'd never done it without her family. I mean, it can be the smallest thing or it can be the biggest thing. And maybe courage is just changing our vocabulary, like Scarlett was saying, that instead of being that I should do it, that I get to do it. So definitely.
So thank you for sharing that. So many people have said that really resonated so much, Scarlett. Thank you for saying that I like that have to get to thought. I get to do that. And that's just a whole mindset shift, and that there's so much power in that. One question we have here from Nicole, thank you, is I'd love to know, how do you overcome setbacks? We all have those days. How do you get back on track, finding gratitude and courage again? Scarlett, I'd love to hear your answer on that.
Absolutely, because, as human beings, we're all the same in the want and need to love and be loved, and yet we all suffer and we all feel pain. That's another thing that we have in common. So yes, we all have setbacks. And I think that it's also changing our perspective of what a setback actually is. And that is relevant to a term called growth mindset and post-traumatic growth. So we can have a growth mindset. So we would, and it's something that also we're taught, but there's different ways to look at things that come up. It doesn't make them great. When you have a challenge or a roadblock, you're not like, yes, it's still difficult and it's still hard to get through, except you've changed the way that you look at it. So you've taken really kind of the fear out of what comes up. You're not afraid of it. You're actually realizing, okay, I am shaped and molded by difficulty in my life, by challenges, by roadblocks, by setbacks. And each one teaches me a lesson and strengthens me. So that is the truth. And science proves that there's something called post-traumatic growth. Now, of course, everybody's heard of PTSD, but guess what? Because of our negative bias, everyone's heard of that term. But going into the pandemic, only 7% of the population suffered from PTSD at one point in their life. The vast majority of us experience something called post-traumatic growth. That's when we grow through difficulty, because that's exactly how we're shaped and molded as human beings. So picture yourself as a student in school learning this, because your parents may not know this to be able to teach you. You can't teach what you don't have. And for too long, we've expected parents to be teaching all this. Well, I can tell you, I was 44 years old when Jesse was murdered. I didn't know any of this stuff. You can't give what you don't have. So picture a student sitting in a classroom and learning about all this. So then they get out into the real world and they're going to have setbacks. And then they understand, they have less fear. And they choose love. We call it choosing love. So they look at this setback and they go, okay, this isn't great. It's not like I wish that this happened, but I accept reality. And I know that I'm going to grow through this somehow. Gosh, I wonder what the lessons are in here for me, because this is pretty painful, but I know that I'm going to get to the other side. I know that I have what it takes. I am enough. And I will grow through this. And really just that understanding, I think, next time, or if you're right in the middle of a setback, or the next time you face one, think about that. Yeah, I remember Scarlett mentioned this thing. What was it? PTG, right? Post-traumatic growth. Yeah, we're shaped and molded by the gosh. All right. So how am I going to grow through this? Do you see how it already changes how you look at a setback from, to, okay, so how is this going to shape and mold me? How am I going to grow through this? It just changes your entire perspective.
That's amazing. That's amazing. One thing you said that was so profound, I thought, and I know some of you that follow Scarlett will be familiar with this, but the whole Choose Love Foundation, the movement, was really started at Jesse's funeral. And I remember you saying this, and it has stuck with me, and I've shared it with so many. And I know Lisa, it's one of the things. Lisa called me probably 2 days after the podcast, and she couldn't believe it either. You said, if we could take one angry thought a day and change that to a loving thought. That was the challenge you put out there for everyone. And just think about that, the power that has. And if you haven't heard that before, I'm going to repeat it, because Scarlett, it's so brilliant, and it just exudes so much power. And I'm grateful for that. You said, if we can take one angry thought a day and change it to a loving thought. I mean, just think of that. I just think it's so amazing. And thank you for for thinking of that, and at a time when you're grieving and you're suffering such loss, and at such a time in your life. That's what you challenge people to do, and that's why you are such a treasure to so many people with what you do. I just think it's amazing. I truly do.
Well, people wanted to be part of the solution. You know, they wanted to do something. People want to do something after a tragedy, and everybody kept asking me. So I thought, well, I'll just, I've got my audience there, the congregation at Jesse's funeral. And literally the tragedy started with an angry thought in a little boy's head. And that thought, remember all the stuff that we know physically about thoughts and how it impacts us and how it wires our brain. That thought grew and it became that Sandy Hook tragedy. So I asked everybody on that day, please, this is what you can do to be part of the solution. Take one angry thought a day and turn it into a loving thought. I said, by doing that, you'll feel better. It's pretty simple. Loving, kind, caring thoughts feel good. Angry, hateful, resentful thoughts feel bad. That translates into your relationships and how you act. So all these people went out to the four corners of the US and they start calling me, emailing me, texting me about a week later saying that one simple act had completely changed their life. And so I knew I was onto something. That was actually my idea for the Choose Love movement. And then educators, child psychologists, psychiatrists, doctoral professors got on board, and they took really that one simple thought and they created this massive movement that's now all over the world.
It's amazing. It's just amazing. You know, if everybody, we've got so many people on here from all over the country and the world, if you could put in the chat box just a yes, I'm going to incorporate that into my life starting tomorrow. You know, that's the challenge. I'm going to do that. If you can just put, yes, I am. I'm going to change that negative thought into a loving thought, and I'm going to start tomorrow. And I just think there's power in that. Thank you.
I love
I know we're.
Oh, I love this. This is like a gift. Ah,
Yeah.
My heart is singing. Thank you.
I think it's
Yes.
amazing. And I just think it's so incredibly powerful. And that's what we need to do. And I think as women, you talked about that, and there may be some men on too. I'm only looking at part of my screen. I apologize if they are. I'm talking so much women centric here, but I think women, we're so hard on ourselves. And it's so difficult for us to give ourselves a loving thought. You know, everything is just, you look in the mirror and you think, oh, when did that happen? Or, you know, where's 25-year-old Amy? That's what you want to see, but yet it's not it's the 51-year-old Amy. You know, that's okay. But we are so difficult on ourselves. Lisa, you made a really good point. Would you like to just, I know we're running out of time here, but you talked about the fact about, because I know we're both in that midlife Gen X space, which I think is between, if you're born between 65 and 72, something like 77 maybe. We weren't given these social, emotional, you know, these tools in school. And could you talk to that a little bit, Lisa, just what you were thinking?
Well, I think Scarlett would say we still aren't giving our kids these at school, but I think there are a lot of homes that are aware of them and letting kids share their emotions. But most typical Gen Xers did not grow up with parents, and our parents may have loved us and our parents may not have abused us, but there wasn't a place for a lot of us to share our feelings, and that got stuffed down over the years. And I think that's played out in a lot, in a lot of different ways. I know it's played out for me in that it was really hard to get in touch with my emotions. It was really uncomfortable. I mean, it wasn't something that I had learned. And I'll share something really that, in terms of negative thought, along those lines is that, as we grow older and as our bodies change and things, up until just recently, I mean, I finally admitted to my husband after talking with a counselor that, I woke up every morning for like 20 years thinking, ugh, I didn't do the diet right again. I didn't stay, it was negative from the moment I woke up. It was negative. Oh, I ate the bread last night at dinner. It just, all these different things. And how freeing it is to look at things differently. And you really have to train your mind. Like Scarlett is saying, you cannot go there. And it's allowed me to unpack a lot of things. But I think a lot of us Gen Xers just were not given those tools. Maybe we couldn't talk back to our parents, so we couldn't really discuss things with them. And it doesn't, it's not about the parents. It's often the generation in which we grew up.
Right.
Right. But
It's such an interesting perspective. And I do think that's, we talk a lot about that, about Gen Xers. And thank you for sharing that, because I do think that's true. And we're hard on ourselves. One other challenge I would do before we close out tonight and talk a little bit, I want Scarlett to fill us in on what's going on with the Choose Love movement and what's coming up this month and so many exciting things. I would love everybody just to be brave and just to give themselves a little self-love and that I am statement that Scarlett talked about, that I am beautiful, or I am strong, or I am smart, whatever it is for you, be brave and put it in the chat box and write it out there. I would love to see it, just see it from everybody, because everybody, when you share those positive affirmations and you put them in your handbag, or you put them on your mirror, and you read them every day, you're giving yourself that love. You're being grateful for who you are. So I would love to see that. Thank you for sharing.
I love that, Amy, because I think it's really important that we remember, catch yourself, bring yourself through breath to the present moment multiple times a day, because that's where life's happening. It's the only time life is happening. And listen to what people are saying. Listen to the words that you're saying. Think about the thoughts that you're thinking, because they're either strengthening you or they're weakening you. And right now, especially, obviously every day, all day long, but especially now, it's really important that the words that you're saying and the thoughts that you're thinking are strengthening you. And remember, you are modeling, and we call it choosing love, but you're modeling this for the other members of your household. So just even if you're saying the right words, but your body language isn't 100% authentic, if your energy isn't authentic to what you're saying, your kids are going to know, your family members, your friends are going to know. So that understanding really helped me rise to the occasion after the tragedy and be the best version of myself. Because I knew that my older son was watching everything that I did, and I was teaching him how to handle life and difficulty going forward. And so it really helped me really be mindful about the messaging that I was giving him.
I just love that. And just look in the chat box. Everybody can read that chat box. And that just, you talk about goosebumps. I know I've said it, but I am kind, I am worthy. It's just, I'm writing them all down because I just think it's so fantastic. And just cheers to you for being brave and putting it out there, and just make sure that you believe that about yourself. It's so important. It's so important. So I just want to thank Lisa for being here tonight. I want to thank Angie for being here tonight. I want to thank everybody in this room for being here tonight. It's amazing how many people have shown up. And I think we could talk I am capable. I just saw that one up there too. I just think it's wonderful. And we have so much to be grateful for. And with that, I would love to just hear what's going on with the foundation, how we can get involved, what you're looking for, what type of help you need, and how we can love more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Lisa, Angie, everybody that has shown up tonight. This is Choose Love Awareness Month that started 7 years ago. So we have lots of really fun activities going on all throughout the month. Go to our website, check it out. It's a movement. So here's the thing. I think for too long, we have thought that maybe someone else was going to fix things. And the problem is, the issues that were in schools when we went to school, like, we had some suicide, we had some substance abuse, we had bullying, there was some mental illness. All of that has actually increased exponentially despite programming that addresses those issues. And really, it's because we've been focusing on the issues, and what you focus on grows. And what we really need to do is address the cause of all those issues, so then we fix it. But I think for a long time, we think, well, our politicians, well, our leaders, or someone is going to fix this. But I'm here to tell you that is not going to happen, because if they could have, they would have. We are going to be the ones that have to fix it. We have to take responsibility for what's going on in our world, in our schools, and be part of the solution. So that's what the Choose Love movement is literally individuals all over the world. We've got so many different ways that you can volunteer. We have volunteers all across the country being advocates, ambassadors. You can make sure that your schools have social emotional learning, not just asking the question, do you have social emotional learning, but saying, what program do you have, or programs, and is it being used, and what are the outcomes? Are you experiencing tremendous outcomes? Because if you're not, then you may not have the right program. And I just heard from this woman that has this free program that she says is the best out there. So take a look at it. Bring it into your homes. We have a home program. We have a master class. So lots of parents have been doing this master class during COVID. So getting together kind of like this, except with a little bit of wine, watching a video once a week, and then commenting on it. We've got programming for communities. So we literally have communities that have their own proclamations and Choose Love days and celebrations. And we even have a benefit corporation, a B Corp for businesses. So there's so many ways that you can be involved. And I'll tell you, people always ask me, oh my gosh, how can you have this be free? I was told from the very beginning, you'll never be able to keep this free. And for me, it's so important because, literally Jesse and the shooter, they were priced out of the market for these kinds of programming are very, very expensive. And when I knew that social emotional learning would have saved Jesse's life, of course, I went right to the school, and the school said, yes, we had a program. We've spent a lot of money on it. We didn't have enough money to train the teachers, but it never got out of the box. And so I went to the drawing board and I created a program that would get out of the box, that would not be priced out of the market of any child. In fact, this year we're focusing on the 15 lowest income states. It's of course free for everyone, but just getting it out there. Every child is entitled to what we know scientifically is a direct path to flourishing. When you think about what you want for yourself, when you think about what you want for your kids, it's to flourish, and they need these skills and tools. So that's our mission, to provide this. And I have to say that the majority of our funding comes from people like you, comes from individual donations. I had a friend the other day and she said, I'm sorry, I gave $25. I know that's not a lot. And I said, that's the majority of our donations, and they add up. And that's how we're able to offer this to students for less than 80 cents per student. Think about how many students you impact a whole class with $25, and that can make you feel really good. You are being part of the solution that way. So many different ways. Please help us spread the word, spread this on your social media, talk about it in schools, daycares, such an important time for babies' brain development. And if you were like me, a working mom, you drop your babies off at 6 weeks old at a daycare at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you pick them up at 7 o'clock at night. And so there's training for professionals, for daycare providers. We have a prenatal program. So important, that young age. And I have daycares that call me and they say, oh my gosh, Scarlett, we feel so bad because we actually market our services based on Choose Love. And every pregnant woman that comes to the door, they want to come to our daycare. And I say, I couldn't be happier that people value choosing love and their baby's brain health. That's fantastic. So we have so much, we have lifespan. Go on, familiarize yourself, talk about it, share it. And literally right now is the time, because we are outside our comfort zone right now, all of us. And now we're in our growth zone. That's when we're out of our comfort zone, we're in our growth zone. Now's the time we can create the world that we want to live in. And the world that I want to live in is a world where people have the skills and tools that can thoughtfully respond to any situation, including a conflict, with love, the strongest choice. Love and compassion. So please help me on this. I'll end with Margaret Mead. She's the famous anthropologist. Her famous quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And that small group of thoughtful, committed citizens is here today. We can do this. We literally are doing this. We can literally reduce and prevent the majority of suffering that's out there by choosing love. So thank you so much for showing up and for choosing love.
Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody that attended. On the chat, you'll see some links for Choose Love. There's a link to get in touch with Angie and the Tidy Mind. Her website is there, as well as Lisa with I Do Part 2 and what I do with Fearlessly Facing 50, so we can all follow each other. And there'll be a follow-up too. Since this is recorded, we will send out all of these links and things to everybody that is here tonight in addition. So I just think it was fantastic. I thank you so much for your time. And let's, like we opened it saying, gratitude is the best attitude, and the struggle ends when gratitude begins. Thank you.